Welcome back to our channel where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales and her royal family. Today we bring you some significant news. Catherine breaks in tears after DNA test confirms Princess Diana's final secret. According to a person close to the situation, Princess Catherine has been sobbing since she received a paper about Princess Diana's secret. This paper shook the entire family when it showed us all we thought we knew about Princess Diana's secret in her dying days. The Diana dossier: how one letter shook the royal family. A huge problem has come up at Kensington Palace, where history is measured in dynasties and manners are a language. There was no constitutional challenge or popular outcry before it. It began with a whisper in a plain white envelope, as most sad secrets do. People close to the Princess of Wales claim that what used to be a typical morning of briefings has turned into the House of Windsor's worst threat to its existence in 100 years. It seems that just one letter has messed up the carefully crafted story of the modern monarchy. It has revealed a secret so profound that it might affect the royal line of succession and transform how people see the crown forever. The box arrived with official papers and formal invitations, which made it seem suspect right away. There was no royal crest return address or official marking on it. The seal was thick and heavy, and it had a deep, strange crimson color. The delicate slanted and personal handwriting on the front was quite different from the clean writing of the royal servants. A source says that Catherine stopped before opening it. The source claimed it wasn't just curiosity. It was instinctual that something was horribly wrong. Alarm without sound. She thought about throwing it away since it was a letter that had been sent to the wrong address or was unwelcome and had gotten past royal security. But an unexplainable yearning, a feeling that it was safer to face it than to ignore it, took over. She broke the seal with a palpable sense of dread. There was nothing inside except a letter or explanation. There was just one clean, scary official piece of high-quality paper, 2 large black words. Confidential DNA report blew apart a lifetime of accepted truths. The paper trembled in her grasp. She gasped when she read the paper. There were names underneath the title. She knew Diana, Princess of Wales, quite well, and one more. A name she didn't know, but would always remember. The report was a clinical mix of genetic markers, technical words, and statistical probabilities. Every sentence and percentage point broke the room's quiet dignity. The words were frigid, but they had a lot of meaning. The results definitely revealed a match with the mother, a direct link that can't be argued with. A reality that Britain's most powerful organization kept secret for decades. The source claimed she read it over and over. Her hands trembled so much that she could scarcely grasp it. Her legs gave out, and she slumped into the nearest chair, grasping the report as if to crush it. Once the truth was out, it couldn't be changed. It yelled at her from the page, tearing at her existence, which was built on her husband's family history. She sobbed because she was shocked, grieved for a mother-in-law she never met, was confused by the lies, and felt that the institution she was meant to lead had betrayed her. Her children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, laughed softly down the hall, which was a sharp contrast to her silent pain. Then the world she had always known and trusted fell apart. Her mind relived years of memories via this dreadful lens, like frightened birds crashing against glass. Father-in-law King Charles gives sideways stares during family gatherings that are too tense. The strange, unexpected quiets that happened when Diana's name was uttered. She had always thought that the murmurs of long-time employees were just gossip, but now they were terrifying reality. Everything that seemed to be separate came together in a terrifyingly clear picture. Not only a historical find, it severely cut her off from the monarchy's hidden history and her own. The more she looked at the hard numbers, the more she knew this wasn't a mistake. Piece of a puzzle. Diana put a piece out in the open for someone bold enough to find it. This article didn't only talk about the past. She realized with horror that it was Diana's warning about what was to come. The DNA testing showed the final troubling messages from the late Princess of Wales. Figuring out Diana's secret warnings. The terrible revelations stayed with the Princess of Wales, who connected the DNA discovery to a number of things that had happened in the past. Althorp, the Spencer family estate, had a public display years ago. Behind glass were the diaries of Diana, a princess who died too young. Some of the sentences from those postings suddenly sent shivers down my spine. One statement was scary. "She will know when she is ready." Catherine thought the sentence was a deep metaphor for either the next generation or William's rehabilitation. The words were now close and sharp. Diana created a trail of breadcrumbs that led straight to the woman who would one day follow in her footsteps. Diana's broken life finally made sense. Former palace staff members talk about Diana's private worries, bits of old TV interviews where her eyes said things that her words couldn't, and Charles's short, dismissive stories that made it seem like she was trying to say something that was too dangerous to say out loud. Diana often talked in layers, using metaphors to talk about her worries and softly brushing off her warnings. It would have cost her, to be honest. A letter from an archive of letters from a long-lost friend hinted at a late marriage surprise she deemed so explosive it could destroy the illusion of blood. Historians said the message was too vague to be important. When Catherine found it, it was evident how important it was. Diana frequently referred to the monarchy as the firm, or more chillingly, the machine. She said that it needed complete obedience and silence to keep its old gears turning, and that it crushed people's pain. Catherine always thought the metaphor was creepy, but she didn't grasp how cruel it was until now. She looked at the polished image, strict protocols, and cold stares behind royal smiles with new eyes. Diana had warned about what the institution will hide to keep the crown safe in every warning. She thought of the fight she had with Charles again, this time with more anger. Years ago, he gently told her not to dig too deep into the family's past over tea. His words were calming and fatherly, but there was an edge to them. Catherine thought that her father-in-law was being too protective of her because of his hard first marriage. This sounded like a threat. She felt like she had a purpose as she looked at the page with Diana's words in her ears. This job was no longer just sitting around. She was more than just a wife-duchess or even queen consort. Diana or fate picked her to carry on the work of the Princess of Wales. There was no longer any doubt about the truth of the secret. This is why it was so well concealed. What was most scary was who else knew. Her anguish stretched beyond Diana to every silent scream, every buried reality, and every part of herself that had been molded to fit the monarchy's cold ideal. She stopped crying over the past. She got ready to fight. Velvet box weapon from the Althorp archive. Catherine believed that Althorp was the only place where the truth may be buried because of Diana's haunting warnings. Diana walked around, cried, and buried her greatest fears in these walls. The courteous talk about a much-needed vacation concealed the trip's silent tension. The Princess of Wales said she wished to go away from the public eye. In fact, she wasn't looking for peace. She looked for ghosts in secret cellars and containers not in ancient hallways. The dark iron gates of the Spencer estate closed behind her car, making her feel like she was alone. In Althorp, history and mysteries were very important. Catherine came to dig. She came in a leisurely way with no clear plan. She moved as it became dark and the big estate got silent. A brief talk with an old servant who stayed loyal to Diana after she died was all it took. The housekeeper squinted as she thought about the big threat. She melted when Catherine said she felt the same feeling of duty and strong protective connection. She led Catherine into an estate wing that not many people remembered or were brave enough to investigate. At the end of a long, narrow tunnel was a door that had been left alone for decades, so its brass handle was rusty. No one came in to clean. She continued, "She always said you'd come," with her hand shaking on the door frame. Outside the door, the air was thick and quiet and smelled like old paper and memories. This location held time's breath. The shelves were filled with old boxes and neatly stacked documents. Catherine did see a small group of crates in the far corner, however. They had silk ribbons that were deteriorating and Diana's beautiful penmanship. The top box said, "For Catherine," which shocked her. At the right time. Now was the time. She opened the first box gently, as if she were afraid that going too fast might make the past go away. Inside, raw, unstable, and honest letters came forth, the wail of a woman who wanted to maintain the truth before it was taken away. Diana hurried to write about secret meetings, odd absences, and mysterious references to a guy she trusted most in the palace. There were blurry fading and concealed pictures between the pages. In a lot of pictures, there was a gentleman standing next to Diana. He was generally on the edge, but he was always there. His face was unusual, yet his posture was near. Their eyes and bodies showed that they were in the same world that no lens could see. The final blow came next. The word DNA on a sealed manila envelope. Catherine opened it with hands that shook. The contents were the same as what she got in the mail, without a name. The same polished language and scary end. There is no rogue scientist or harmless leak. Diana was aware. She looked for proof and left it as proof and a weapon. This archive was a file, not a journal. Diana's writing about who cooled Catherine more than what she wrote. The way he looked in the pictures would destroy all she knew about the royal family. Diana had a companion who was not included in official documents but was caught in these unseen pictures. It was scary how much he looked like someone famous. The man was tall and serene with a jaw that seemed like it was about to revolt, and eyes that said he belonged yet didn't belong. Catherine looked at the image, and it brought up memories that hurt. It was not like William or Charles. It sounded like Prince Harry, but not the young, current Harry. It sounded like an older, tired, troubled Harry. Diana sent letters about this person that were both mysterious and full of emotion. One text said, "He carries more of me than anyone knows. They won't let him survive because of it." The message came out, was yelling. Each sentence stank of concealed ancestry. The fact that this person was entirely removed from the news archives and court gossip only made the truth stronger. He was gone. Catherine knew what to do after Diana's warnings and this man's name. She had to confront the person who had the most to lose and who could prove that what she said was true. She stood up to the king. A palace reckoning for the king's confession. Catherine chose her time very carefully. There would be no aides, private secretaries, or formal business. The king and the Princess of Wales would be alone, separated by decades of tradition, but connected by a secret that may set off the monarchy. When she went into the king's private study, she was Diana's executor. Charles waited his expression, showing no interest. He felt like the crown was part of him. She didn't want to speak about minor things. The polished mahogany desk had the images letters and 2 DNA results next to each other, indictments on paper and in ink. After reading the pages, he let out a dry sigh. He said, "Conspiracies," but his voice was feeble. Diana's old delusions. Catherine couldn't be ignored. She read a letter from Diana out loud. She talked slowly, and every syllable was full of fury. As Diana's worries, confessions, and anguish filled the quiet, beautiful room, Charles's behavior shifted. His jaw, which had been rigid, loosened. He looked down for too long. Catherine watched the facade break. Charles let out a deep sigh of grief, not denial, as she read about the person they erased. He didn't say anything. There was no protest from him. He just closed his eyes. "Yes," he said, and his confession hung in the air. He was a genuine person. The air was full with the strength of his confession. He felt like he had to lift each phrase like a stone. He confirmed that the individual was real, that he was close to Diana, and that the senior courtiers and family members had made an agreement to protect the institution at any cost. Documents buried. There were no further mentions. Quiet became the rule over time. "It wasn't done to hurt her," Charles said without any emotion. "It was done to keep the crown stable." That cold, mechanical reason struck Catherine like a blow. Her eyes hurt as she got up from her chair. "You let her die with a secret she begged someone to carry," she remarked, breaching royal protocol. "You let her drown while you worked on the crown image." In truth, her words were a eulogy for every time Diana had been dubbed unstable or fragile when she was actually only trying to be heard. Charles has no defense. His silence was more powerful than any argument. Catherine didn't see him as a king or father-in-law. She saw him as a guy who had decided to be involved. He watched the woman he used to love break apart in public while privately promising her that her secret would die with her. Catherine knew his secret was out because he was sitting motionless and cold. Now Prince William had to make a choice. The prince decides a brother's duty. She waited until the house was quiet, and the kids' laughter had died down for the night. Then she went up to William. He grinned at her, but it faded as he saw how she looked. At first, she didn't say anything. She set the folder down on the table between them. William thought it was a real bomb. He carefully picked it up, reading Diana's name, the lab stamp, and the terrible results. He changed the way he stood. His shoulders were tight, his face was pale, and the room was quiet. It wasn't silent because people didn't believe it. It was the silence of a man finally meeting a ghost that had scared him his entire life. He spoke in a low voice. Not a no, was a memory. He spoke about how Diana would come to his room late at night when they were kids, how she would whisper her worries to him, and how she would hold him tightly. She had told him, "Don't trust appearances, and there is a truth no one will protect unless you do." At the time, these seemed like the ramblings of a lonely lady. Now they were needed. Then came cold, consuming rage. He was angry with his father, the monarchy, and most of all at himself for not pushing harder and understanding his mother's argument. He thought of Harry, his younger brother, who was the black sheep, had always felt like an outsider. William saw it from a sad new angle. What if Harry's famous resistance was more about understanding than rebellion? What if Harry's anger wasn't about the regulations of the school, but about the unspoken lie that was vibrating beneath their feet? Catherine touched his hand. With passion in her voice, she said, "We can't let her truth die with us." As William fought between duty and love, a new player entered the game. A voice came out of the dark, ready to attack after a moment of silence. There was never a knock. Camilla, the queen consort, arrived in their private rooms like a shadow full of hope. She grinned eerily as she glanced at the documents on the table. "I heard you've been busy," she said softly. She stated she had known Diana's secret for years and used it to make sure she stayed in the royal family. The threat was made with the calm venom of a seasoned politician. She looked at Catherine and remarked, "A scandal of this size would not only ruin the firm, it would destroy you, your group, your children. Press is always hungry. Don't give them food." The threat was hidden in anxiety, which was a lesson in how to scare people without saying a word. Camilla didn't understand Diana's spirit, which made Catherine stronger. She was going to talk louder than she had previously. A princess's war cry reckoning. By dawn, media in London were buzzing about a surprise announcement from Kensington Palace. Calls to journalists at the last minute showed that history was going to be made. Catherine stood in front of the cameras by herself. She had a little folder in her hands and a serious, determined look on her face. She began without any rules or titles. She spoke like a woman who had carried someone else's truth too far and decided to let it go. At first her voice shook, but with each phrase she became stronger, as if Diana were there with her, giving her strength. She told everyone the palace's secret that had been kept for decades. She spoke about letters, pictures, and the Althorp archive. She spoke about being quiet and lying. Then she displayed the DNA test results. She startled the world when she said that Diana, Princess of Wales, had a third child, a son, whose name and existence had been obliterated. The shock was real. People gasped, the camera shutters clicked like crazy, and reporters tried to capture every word. Emotional effects that are like a volcano. In only a few minutes, global news breaks. Before Diana was done speaking, Diana's secret son was trending throughout the world. The palace was in chaos. The institution was shocked by the one woman they believed they could handle. Catherine hurried to William, who was just out of sight once everything was over. She fell into his arms and cried with pleasure that the silence was over. The last player, sun, shines. For days, everyone wanted to know, who is he? He showed up when speculation was at its highest. A calm press conference in a neutral place, not a royal gate. James was serious, dignified, and clear. There were no angry words. He didn't want to get back at anybody. He initially thanked Catherine for giving up everything for his mother. He didn't say that Diana was a princess. He went on, "She was my mom," which struck a connection with people all across the globe. He spoke about a dark background that was shaped by broken realities, and the scary thought that he was a secret. There wasn't much information on his guardians, but it was plenty. He stayed away from cameras for years, watching two brothers recount a story he knew wasn't whole. The pain wasn't that bad, detailed, quiet, and heartbreakingly real. But it was when he looked straight into the camera, jaw set, and spoke the words that changed everything. His voice was loud and strong. "They told me I had no place. But blood can't be erased." He didn't say monarchy. He doesn't have to. The effect was immense. He didn't want a crown. He wanted others to know about his mother's pain and death. The declaration came to an end. The man disappeared into silence after hitting a wall that no royal could break. The people responded right away and split. People protested outside Buckingham Palace. Millions of people signed petitions demanding institutional change. Catherine witnessed things happen that weren't on video. Her hand was on her stomach, not out of fear, but out of resolve. She was rearing a new generation that would inherit a monarchy that wouldn't hide the truth no matter how bad it was, to protect the crown. The gates of the palace closed, but not to keep a secret. It got ready for a reckoning. The secret time came to an end. The time for reckoning started. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.